All right, so in example 3, we're going to use linear equations to solve a couple mixture problems. Our first example, we have Casey, who buys sandwiches and bags of chips. Each sandwich costs 3 times as much as a bag of chips. She bought 5 sandwiches and 4 bags of chips and spent $57. How much does a sandwich cost? So when we have word problems like this, the challenge really is to filter through and decipher the information that we're given. So we know Casey's buying 2 things, sandwiches and chips. How do they relate to each other? This is the sentence right here that's going to help us with this. Each sandwich costs 3 times as much as a bag of chips. So if we knew what a bag of chips cost, we would know that a sandwich is just that price times 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to let X represent our price of a bag of chips. So if the chips are represented by X, then the sandwich, I'm not writing this in an organized way, will be 3 times the price of the chips. So 3X is representing our bags of, or our price of our sandwiches. All right, now to write an equation, we want to see the other information that we're given. See how we have a total of $57 that was spent? So we're going to write an equation for money. We're going to have some stuff that will equal the $57 because that's the total money spent. So Casey bought 5 sandwiches. Well, each sandwich is being represented by 3x. So we're going to do 5. We could do 3x plus 3x plus 3x. We could just have 5 3x's. Or we could say, all right, 5 times 3x, which is representing our sandwiches. She's also buying chips. She's buying 4 bags of chips. So 4 times, what are we using to represent our chips? That's what we decided in the beginning is the x, and that's going to equal the $57. So let's simplify our equation. 5 times 3x is 15x. 4 times x is 4x. And now we have an equation where we can solve for x. Now, when we solve for x, we just want to keep in mind, we actually will be figuring out the price of the chips, but then we'll have to go back to answer the question, what does a sandwich cost? But we have to solve for x in order to even do that. So our x's are on the same side of the equation, so we'll just add those together. 15x plus 4x is 19x. Carry down our equals 57. And then we just divide by 19, and we know that x is equal to 3. 57 divided by 19 is 3. So we just figured out that the price of a bag of chips is $3. Sandwiches cost 3 times that. So the price of a sandwich is 3 times x, which we just figured out. So 3 times 3. Now we know that each sandwich cost $9. All right, so let's look at another example. The more we do this, the easier they feel. We've got Jenna, who is buying paints for her project. She buys X paints for $3 each and 4 paints for $5 each. The average cost of the paint is $3.33 each. How many paints did she buy altogether? All right, so this equation is going to start out not too bad. There's one piece that's going to feel a little bit tricky when we talk about bringing in the fact that we were given information about an average, but just stick with it. Let's see if we can make sense of it. So Jenna is buying paints. She buys X paints for $3 each. So how much is she spending on this paint? Well, $3 times however many of those paints, so times X. In addition to that, she's buying 4 paints for $5 each. So we're going to take, she's got $5 times those 4 paints. So just to simplify this, I'm going to rewrite, we have 3x plus 20. Now, what we're told is that the average cost of the paints is $3.33. So I can't just say that 3x plus 20 equals $3.33 because that's not a total. That's an average. So if you guys have worked with averages before, the way that we find an average is we add up all the numbers and we divide by how many there are. So in this case, we would divide by the number of paints. So I'm just going to go ahead and divide this by, I'm going to write in number of paints and we'll talk about what that is. That is going to equal the $3.33. Okay, well, how many paints is Jenna buying? We know she's buying 4 paints, right? We can see right here, 4 paints, but then she's buying X paints. So we don't really have a one number to write in here. What our equation is going to look like is we're going to take our 3x plus 20. We're going to divide by, now this number of paints is our X paints plus the 4 paints. That's how many paints there are. Since we don't know what X is, we just have to leave that as X plus 4. And I'm throwing it in parentheses so we can kind of say, yeah, that's just our number of paints, kind of together. Think of those as being together. That's going to equal $3.33. All right, so how do we solve an equation like this? Probably we don't love this fraction right here. So a way that we can get out of this fraction, if you notice this fraction is being divided by an x plus 4. So the great thing about math is we can undo operations by doing the opposite. So instead of dividing by x plus 4, we're going to multiply by x plus 4. This x plus 4 technically is over 1. I'm going to talk about why that's important in a second. But because we're in an equation, if I'm going to multiply the left side of the equation by x plus 4, I have to do that on the right side as well. Now, the reason why I like to think of this as x plus 4 over 1, now I can see that the x plus 4 is in the numerator, and this x plus 4 is in the denominator. So we're able to say, well, this x plus 4 divided by this x plus 4 equals 1, which is why we get to cross those off. Essentially, we got ourselves out of that fraction. Now we have 3x plus 20 equals 3.33 times x plus 4. As I rewrite this, I know that I'm about to distribute, so let's just go ahead and do that distributing. 3.33x, and then we have a 3.33 times a positive 4, so it will be a positive 3.33 times 4 is 13.32. Okay, so when we solve equations, I want us to get our x's on the same side of our equation first. A lot of people like to subtract or move the smaller x value, so maybe we can subtract 3x. That just keeps us with a positive x. So 20 equals 3.33x minus 3x is a 0.33x plus 13.32. Now to solve for this x, I know we're going to divide by this 0.33, but that's going to be our last step. First, we're going to do the opposite of adding a 13.32. We're going to subtract 13.32. 13.32 minus 13.32 is 0. When we subtract, we get 6.68 equals 0.33x. And now we made it to our last step to divide by that 0.33x. Not the x, I'm sorry, just by the 0.33. 0.33 divided by 0.33 cancels. Mathematically, it reduces to 1, leaving us with x equals, we're going to say about 20. So the question, we just figured out that x is about 20. How many paints does she buy all together? Well, she bought about 20 paints. That's what we just figured out. But she also bought those 4 paints. So this x right here, we just figured out that that's 20. We also have these 4. So she's got 4 paints. So how many total? 24 total paints. That's what she bought.